Hey, good afternoon. How are you? My name is Otis Toussaint, and I'm here with Army Medicine. And we've got a phenomenal opportunity to talk to an Army doctor, Dr. Briggs. And I hope that you enjoyed today's discussion. It's just a continuing theme for our month, and it's basically my Army Medicine story. And I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. So here we go. And I'd like to have my co-host join me on our discussion panel. The first person I'd like to have onto our discussion panel will be Captain Brandon Parham. And there you go. What's going on, Brandon?
I'm good. How are you?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm glad to be back. Last week I was gone, and I saw you held it down, yourself and Takara Linson. Y'all knocked it out the park. Y'all knocked it out. I appreciate y'all doing that, what y'all did.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Glad you're feeling better.
Hey, man, I am feeling better. Good Army medicine took care of me. I went to Fort Belvoir, got some emergency care, and the doctor, he squared me away, gave me the medication I needed, and I came back roaring, and I'm stronger now, better now, so I'm thankful for that. So thank you for holding it down, and shout out to Army Medicine for taking care of me too. The next person we'd like to add on to our discussion, of course, is Captain Takara Linson. What's going on, Captain Takara Linson? How are you?
Hello. Glad to be back 2 weeks in a row now.
Excellent. Hey, this is job security. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, that it is.
We are moving towards, mainly online. A lot of people are able to be reached this route. And I think yourself and Brandon kind of got your feet wet in the water last week. And I think y'all going to be, rock stars in this live streaming thing that we've got going on. And I'm thankful that y'all to join us today. Absolutely. Not just
my
defeat.
Pleasure.
Okay, Brandon, I don't want to go too deep in that comment. Thank you, man, but I appreciate it. And of course, I want to add on my co-host of the regular, Captain Holly Weaver. What's going on?
Hey, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We are midweek, halfway there or more than, since it's the evening now. How's everybody doing?
Doing good. I didn't think of the math just now, but thank you for breaking it down there for me, Holly. I appreciate it.
I'm here to provide you with simple math. That's my expertise.
Well,
Common Core, let's not go there.
Simple math, no common core. That new math, we don't want the new math?
No new math.
No.
Common Core is terrible.
Well, I appreciate that, breaking it down for me. All four of us, we're going to knock it out the park, of course, for the 5th Medical Recruiting Battalion. And I'm glad to be back, and I'm glad that we're going to have an absolute wonderful guest. Before we bring him in, we had the chance to actually connect and talk with him for a little bit. And I think he's going to be a great guest. What do y'all think?
Absolutely. Of course.
He has amazing experience, active duty, reserve. He's been through our training programs. He's going to have a lot to share, for our audience. So I'm really thankful that he is here with us and can speak to literally all of our different programs, because he's been through active duty, reserve. He's been through it all.
Absolutely. And I guess without further ado, drum roll. Here we go. Dr. Briggs, what's going on, sir?
Hey, good. How are you?
We are appreciative. I'm thankful that you come and join us on our live stream today. We are thankful for it. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Excellent. So I think a good plan as far as our discussion today, because we've got more than the normal number of folks that we've got typically interviewing, etc. We'd like to at least have everyone go around and ask a question. And of course, if you've got a question, dear viewers, if you've got a question, a comment that you want to put, make sure you post it on the different platforms that you're checking it out on right now, whether it be YouTube or Facebook. So the first question I always like to ask, let's just jump right into it. Let's get right into it. Sir, give us your simplified Army story. Who are you? Where you coming from? And why did you decide to join our illustrious band?
So I grew up in the Kansas City area in Kansas. And when I was applying for medical school, I got a flyer that said that, if you want to go to, get our medical school paid for free, you can join the Army. So I spoke with a recruiter. This was 2004. I was very interested in the Army and joining. And so after talking with the recruiter, it sounded like a great plan. And then basically I signed on with the Health Professional Scholarship Program, the HPSP, and then I went through medical school. Graduated in 2008, and then I did an internship at Madigan Medical Center in Washington State. And then I was a flight surgeon for a few years where I went to Germany. I was deployed to Afghanistan twice. And then I did an emergency medicine residency again at Madigan Army Medical Center. And then after 12 years total in the Army, I decided to transition to the Reserve because I still wanted to serve, but I also want to have a little bit more personal freedom, I guess. So right now I'm back in the Kansas City area, but still doing some time in the reserves.
Okay, excellent. So thank you for clarifying that. Brandon, go ahead and jump in.
Yeah, absolutely. I met Major Briggs at the time. I guess it was about 2 years ago. I drove down to Fort Leonard Wood. He was doing a release from active duty and had some interest in the Army Reserve. So we spoke at a Starbucks down by Fort Leonard Wood and just went over all the different options that he had transitioning from active duty and what was involved in that transition. So I'm happy to have him as a subject matter expert, really. Along the way, I've used him many a times with HPSP, physicians that are, interested, civilians that are interested in going into the Army Reserve. So I appreciate you being here, sir.
Of course, my pleasure.
Absolutely. Captain Weaver. Wait, hold on. She's mute.
Wait.
I think she muted herself.
Novice move. I don't know why I did that. I always am taking notes and writing my questions down when our guests are telling their story. And before we came on the show, Colonel Brigg was talking about how he had a lot of deployment experience. And when he told us his story just now, he talked about his deployments to Afghanistan. Well, he also mentioned that he's deployed to Syria. And I was wondering, Colonel Brigg, if you would please tell us a story that you just remember vividly from your experience deploying, whether it was in Afghanistan or while you were deployed in Syria, where it was just like a moment where Army medicine teamwork came together and maybe there was a patient experience or something like that you could just bring us to your experience, and that way we can kind of visualize, what went on.
Okay. Well, this was actually in my most recent deployment in 2019. This was part of my team. We were the 2nd Forward Resuscitative Surgical team. There was a Army Ranger that was very badly injured by an IED when he was doing a dismounted patrol. He was very severely injured. I think. He was basically on the brink of death. He ended up amputating his right arm and both of his legs. And he was so severely injured that they didn't think that he was going to survive long enough to go from Afghanistan to Germany back to the States, which is usually what we do when someone is injured. So we did a direct flight from Afghanistan to San Antonio using 2 midair refuelings on the KC-135 on a C-17. And the guy's alive now today, and I occasionally get updates from my former team members that he is just doing great. He's a triple amputee, but he's alive and doing well. And just the fact that I don't think anyone. If had it happened, 10 or even 15 years ago, I'm not even sure that guy would have survived. So that was always something kind of cool.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And I just can't even imagine what that was like and being in that moment, and then just knowing that he is alive today and doing so well because of the care that you and your team provided. That is phenomenal. So thank you so much for sharing that. I think it really helps for our viewers, and we get a lot of medical students that tune into these because we share this in the military HPSP group, which has 8,000 people in it, and so a lot of current HPSP students will tune in, and they have a lot of questions about residency and stuff like that, and they love to hear the stories and the real life experience to know what potentially they could be doing once they're done with medical school. So thank you so much for sharing.
No problem. My pleasure.
Excellent. Takara, you're next.
All right. So as me being a transitioning person myself, sir, so my question for you is, I see that you started off as a general surgeon, but then after that, you then completed residency also as emergency medicine. So what made you, was there anything in particular that happened that made you switch, or what is it that brought you over to that?
I guess part of it, like, I wasn't 100% sure if a general surgery was for me. It's a 6-year residency, and you have to definitely be 100% committed. And I wasn't 100% sure. And so the Army actually has the general medical officer, which is, you complete your internship, you do anywhere from 2 to 4 years, and then you rotate back as doing a residency of your choice. When I was deployed, I was a battalion surgeon, but like one of the places I was at, I was the only doctor on the base. Well, there was a general surgeon too, but I basically had to be like everything. I had to be a general practitioner on top of being, a part-time emergency medicine and an orthopedic doctor. Basically a little bit of everything, which kind of like sparked my interest in ER. And then so I came across a few ER doctors when I was deployed. And so just kind of gravitated towards that. And then in 2014, I was accepted into residency.
All right. Thank you very much for that there, sir. It looks like we have a few comments and everything like that on our timeline already. And maybe the different hosts could answer some of these things that people are asking already. So here's the first thing. It goes, what can the USAR do better to attract medical professionals transitioning off of active duty to become part of the U.S. Army Reserve? Thanks. Brigadier General Marsiglia. Who'd like to jump on that?
I think we should let Colonel Brigg share his personal experience first, that what attracted him to go into the reserve, and then maybe we can share some things after that.
Okay, go ahead.
Part of the reason I was attracted to the reserve, because by the time I transitioned off active duty, I had 12 years in, and I really, I wanted to, the Army retirement is definitely, very enticing. I wasn't 100% sure I wanted to do 8 more years of active duty. So I actually, when I was at Fort Leonard Wood, I worked with several reserve nurses, and one of them had told me about the reserve programs that were available, and that he gave me the contact and information for, by then it was Lieutenant Parham, and then started talking to me, and all the information that he gave me sounded very appealing. I could basically still serve the military while, having a little bit more freedom with my, with my life and career and where to live. And I think it was kind of like, to me, like, lack of a better word, like best of both worlds.
Okay. Good answer, sir. We appreciate that. Definitely. It looks like we got a couple. Well, how about the recruiters? What do y'all think?
I think Brandon has a good thing that he could share about the HPSP and retirement, and just letting our folks know, more of the logistical retirement piece.
Okay, go ahead, Brandon. I think you're mute, Brandon.
My apologies. So the Army does a couple of different things, because we have physicians that come from USIS, and we also have physicians that come from HPSP, right? So if you come from HPSP and you decide you want to come off active duty, you want to go to the civilian world, go into the Army Reserve and continue your service, the Army will take your HPSP time and contribute it to your Army Reserve retirement. So that's one of the benefits to that. And if you're USIS and you want to come in to the reserve after you finish your obligation, they'll take, once you hit the 20 years, they'll convert those 4 years of USIS into points for your retirement, which means that you will make a little bit more money during your pension.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for the clarification. It looked like we got some more comments coming in on the timeline there. Wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. We'll get her back. She's not going too far. We'll get her back. Maybe some of the well, Holly, if you could tell us, and I see someone asking questions, hey, what does the AN stand in your names? What is that all about?
Army nurse. So
Army nurse.
That's
Okay.
what it stands for. Depending on the corps that you're in, you have a different letters behind your name. So, for example, Brandon has an MS, and Colonel Brigg would have an MC for Medical Corps. And the MS behind Captain Parham's name is for Medical Service Corps. So we each have our own different corps that we're a part of based off of our specialty or our area of concentration. So I am an Army nurse. Currently, I'm a med-surg nurse working as a healthcare recruiter. And then after I leave recruiting, I'm going into emergency medicine. So I'm very excited that Colonel Brigg is here because I can pick his brain and just hear all of his stories because I'm really looking forward to going into emergency medicine after this.
Okay. Thank you, Holly. Appreciate it. Ooh, we've got some comments coming in from YouTube right here. And here it is. What is the obligation for a reservist for a yearly commitment? IMA versus a traditional reservist. Who would like to jump on that?
So I can answer that if Colonel Brigg does not want to. So the obligation for the reserve.
You take it, man. Take it.
All right, I got it. I'm here. The obligation for a reservist is really nothing. So if you come off active duty, if you don't sign an incentives contract, you don't have an obligation. The only thing that obligates you to service is, I suppose, your commission to a certain extent, right? So because your commission is indefinite until you say, I don't want to do this anymore, and you resign your commission, that is the only thing that I guess obligates you. But that being said, as a physician or a nurse or as an officer, you can come and go as you please from the Army Reserve to the IRR. I've had many officers, decide they want to do the reserve, and whatever the case is, it didn't work for their schedule, and they decided to drop back into the IRR and then come back in. I've had many officers come off active duty and then jump into the reserve or hang out in the IRR for, a year or two. The one thing I would tell you is that if you're coming off active duty, don't resign your commission, because the process is very extensive to come into the reserve, right? So you have to go back through the board process. However, if you are coming off active duty and you retain your commission and a year or two later you decide you want to do the reserve, you miss everything, it's a couple of pieces of paper that we just submit to the unit, and you're back in the reserve.
Okay. Brandon, thank you for that. It looks like your AOL dial-up has kind of got your video fuzzy, but it's okay. It's okay.
You've got mail.
We'll bring you back. Hey, sir, I see a question here. I think you would be able to answer. So here's the question. How long was the internship? I didn't know you can practice before completing residency. Is it particular to go to active duty only, or reservists can do it also?
So my internship was 12 months. That's all the requirement that you need to be to get a medical license in most states. what I did is I was a general medical officer, which is like a general practitioner for an aviation unit. While I don't think that's necessarily limited to active duty, it's much more common in active duty than it is on the civilian side. On the civilian side, it'd be very difficult to have your own practice with just an internship and a license. You usually have to be residency specialized.
Okay. Thank you very much for that answer there, sir. It looks like we got one here. And hold on, let's add back Takara back into the stream. Hey, Takara, welcome back.
Ooh, nice background.
Oh, she changed the background up.
I had to switch places.
She's switching up on us. All right, all right.
She went into her professional broadcast studio.
Right. My internet, it won't let me be great.
Hey, it's better than Brandon's in AOL internet, so it's all good. So here's the next question.
My brother's right there.
Here's the next question that I see. How hard is it to switch back to active duty assignment after reserve status of SCH? Was that school? I'm not sure. Any clearance requirements? Who'd like to jump on that?
So with the active duty assignment after reserve status, if you're in a reserve status, it's the same as if you're coming back in as a civilian, right? So if you, even a civilian physician or nurse or whatever the case is, you have to go through the board process. I know it's really weird. Going from active duty to reserve is very, very easy. Going from IRR to reserve is very, very easy. Going from reserve or IRR or a civilian to the active duty component is not as easy. You go through the whole board process, the letters of recommendation, the statement of motivation, the security clearance, all that stuff. But it definitely is possible. And so that any clearance requirements, you'll fill out the last 10 years of your life, where you lived, where you worked, where you went to school for the last 10 years, your family members. You'll have letters of recommendation from your supervisors when it, for wherever it is that you worked, whatever specialty you work in. If you're in the reserve, you'll get a commander's recommendation, and then you can do a packet with an AMED recruiter locally to transition to Army Reserve. We've done it plenty of times. You don't lose rank as long as you stay in the same specialty as you are currently in.
Okay, Brandon, thank you very much for that clearance. I appreciate that information there. And so we've got some folks who are, leaving encouraging comments as well. Let's go ahead and put up some of these comments. Let's give some of the folks that's on our panel some props a little bit, because I think they're rocking and rolling. So we got one here from Mr. R.G. McDonald. Captain Linson, glad to see you. All right now. Let's see, he said JBLM. Excellent, excellent. We've got one here from, let's see, Miss Kate Flock. She says, Holly Weaver, you rock.
No, she rocks. And it's Colonel Flocky. She is
Flocky, okay.
phenomenal. And we're actually going to have to ask her to be a guest on here, because she has this awesome extroverted personality. She's hilarious. And she has had some really awesome and unique experiences in the military, humanitarian missions. I worked with her at Fort Leavenworth, and she actually is a great recruiting sidekick. She passed a lead the other day. She met this PA and they were interested in applying, and so she kicked it over to me, and they want to apply, and I got them to the right recruiter because they're not in my area. So we definitely should have her on the show. She's great and has a lot of cool stories too. So thanks, Colonel Flocky.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that.
Way to promote the recruiting aspect of this, Holly.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Captain Parham, Captain Linson, Captain Weaver, let's go ahead and just start asking the questions, or peppering the questions to Colonel Brigg. I know he's a slew of information. He wants to, put it out there. He wants to motivate others to potentially be another future emergency medical doc. So let's go ahead and ask him some questions. So Captain Weaver, you could go ahead and start it off.
All right. So the big thing in Army medicine is talking about our pride in the patch and what serving as an Army medical officer means to you. So Dr. Brigg, could you please share with us what is your pride in the patch and why are you proud to be an Army medicine officer?
I guess I was proud to serve because I was in college when 9/11 happened, and then when I went to medical school in I was going to medical school in 04. I was the fact that I could join the Army, I could still be a doctor and join the Army, still serve my country and take care of the servicemen. That was like one of the biggest appeals. There's a lot of pride to it. I could still do my job, and I mean I was able to do my job and just. I guess it was like that was it, just like being able to to serve others and take care of people who fight for our country.
Excellent. So let's go back. Captain Munson, go ahead and jump on the next one.
So me being public health, my question for you, sir, is that you transition out in the midst of a pandemic. So how have you noticed the difference between Army medicine and how we handle the pandemic? And then now that you're on the civilian side, how they handle the pandemic, and have you seen any correlation, or how has Army medicine helped you make that transition into the reserve side into the civilian sector?
I think just in general, people. Where I worked before I transitioned off of active duty, I was at Fort Leonard Wood. I usually took care of soldiers and their families. They tend to be healthier, take care of themselves, as well as the retirees. They tend to take care of the medications. They tend to have at least a little bit of discipline in their life. So I say just in general, they tend to be healthier patients. Where I work right now on the civilian side, that's not the case. I see people who don't take medications because they can't afford them, or they don't want to, or they're 50 miles away from the closest doctor, so they just don't go see a doctor. So there's a lot more sicker patients, I guess, during the pandemic, and it was just definitely I don't know if they're like a wake up. It was more of just kind of like an eye-opening experience because of just realizing as as service members and family members and retirees, they have access to medical care free or mostly free, whereas some people don't. They don't go unless they're on the verge of death. It was definitely interesting.
Wow. Thank you for that answer, sir. Brandon, it looks like your AOL is working. Go ahead and ask that question.
Thank you, Otis. I appreciate it.
We're going to hear a dial tone here in a second.
It's funny because my daughter and I just did a TikTok with the dial tone, and she had no idea what that meant. So here we are, referencing it again. Colonel Brigg, so what we get a lot with civilian physicians or students that are looking to go to med school is, I wouldn't say they're afraid, but the big question is, do they have to go through basic and their experience through the medical corps, or do they have to kick in doors? Are they going to end up in the Army as the specialty that they want? With you going through HPSP, what is your experience with that?
So, we had to do basic training, and being a college athlete prior to going to basic training, for me, it was not just the physical part, but it was also learning like the discipline and like the regulation stuff like that. It wasn't particularly hard. I think that if you have, there's just another thing to learn, I guess. As for like kicking in doors and things like that, something I never really did. Although I did do some operational medicine when I was a flight surgeon. I was never, kicking in doors and jumping out of airplanes, that kind of thing. But if you're inclined to do so, there are always opportunities with like special forces, rangers, that kind of thing.
But
that kind of
overall,
that answer your question, I guess.
Yeah, but overall, I mean, you went through medical school into emergency medicine, and that's what your job was. It wasn't that you went through emergency medicine and then they just changed your job.
No, I was doing my job 99% of the time. There's still the Army thing, like, going to the range, doing PT tests and that kind of stuff. But 99% of what I did when the Army was doing my medical job.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the biggest questions we have from med students, students that are looking to go to med school, students that are in med school or residency, physicians that are currently practicing is, am I going to be able to do my specialty once I'm in the Army? I think that's one big thing that the civilian side does not understand is that as a physician, we're looking for you. We want your experience. We want you as a physician to come in and help our soldiers, help our families, not to make you an infantry soldier or whatever the case is.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like my job is like everyone wanted me to practice medicine and do my job because that's what the Army wanted us. That's what the Army trained me to do when I was deployed. They wanted me to to take care of soldiers, that kind of thing. So no, like I was never out, doing things that were not really medicine related, at least not against my will. I did do some cool stuff just because I wanted to, but that was different. That was because, it was cool to do.
Excellent.
Let's hear about this cool stuff. What kind of cool stuff are you talking about?
When I was deployed, I got to ride in the back of a Black Hawk and a Chinook. I got to shoot a minigun. I got to shoot an M60 out of the back of a Black Hawk. When I was my medevac unit, they basically put me on the winch and lifted me, tried it from like the ground to the helicopter, like 75, 100 feet in the air, which was definitely gave me some vertigo. Let's see. I'm trying to think of anything else like really cool I got to do. I got to ride an Apache when I was at Fort Campbell. That was pretty cool.
Awesome. I think sometimes people are interested in the adventure side too. So it's to hear, those different experiences and opportunities that you have. We have something for everyone.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Awesome. So before I was, my time was snatched up there by Holly. I had a question as well. So my question is for you, sir. Mentorship is important to a lot of folks, military-wise. Whether it doesn't matter the MOS, but who has served as a mentor to you throughout your time that you could look back on that really kind of left a positive light in you?
Well, I would say some of them, like my former program director, emergency medicine program director, Colonel Scott Young. Also, my residency mentor was Colonel Mike Perot. They were both like very positive influences on my life and on my career. I'm trying to think. Those are the two biggest mentors that like come to mind. Like that's like a very broad question, like a very question I have to go back to kind of think about that. But those two right there are probably one of the biggest influences in my medical career, I would think.
Can I ask another quick question? Can we jet back to your rationale as to why you chose the medical school that you went to?
So this was back in 2004, and the HPSP scholarship was pretty competitive. And so the recruiter, I guess, she said that there's a lot of other people gunning for it. There's only a few scholarships left. So the first school to accept you, I'd recommend taking it. And so I got accepted to Lake Erie College of Osteopathic Medicine. I emailed her, and she basically said that you should take it. Otherwise, in a couple of days, there's probably going to be some other people who get accepted, and they're going to take that scholarship if you don't.
I hear you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you for the answer. So, hey guys, we got some really good questions coming in. So let's go ahead and post some of these questions. And of course, anyone could go ahead and answer it. So the first one comes from, let's see, Miss Cardoso. She said, what made you go DO instead of MD? Does it matter at all since you're AD? How was the transition from Army to civilian practice?
So I went with DO because the DO school was the first school that accepted me. In the Army, as far as I know, the DOs and MDs are both treated equally. So that wasn't really much of much of an effect for me. then transition from the Army to civilian practice. It wasn't very difficult at all. We're at least in the Midwest. There's probably just as many DOs as there are MDs, and so I think more it's like it's more of like your training, like your residency. As long as you had a residency training and had some experience, I think that's all people really cared about. I've never come across any, as far as I know, in the military or in civilian world, any discrimination against DOs versus MDs. If it's out there, I haven't experienced it.
Okay. Hey, sir, you're kind of, and I think I'm dating myself here, but I think once we get you like on the solo screen, you're kind of giving us like that that neighbor from Tim Allen.
Oh, sorry.
You only see that. So if you could, there you go. Right. Got it. No sweat. We appreciate that. So the next question. Thank you for the question, Ms. Cardosa. The next question is, Dr. Brigg, what is the hardest thing about being a physician in the reserve, juggling 2 careers? If you could change or improve one thing in the reserve, what would it be?
For me, I really haven't had a whole lot of difficulty in the reserve. I have, I'm able to do my job where I'm at without any like limitations. Although being an ER doctor makes me a lot more flexible than most. So I don't really, I would say yes, the reserve is a second career, but it has minimal interference with my job or my personal life. If I could change or improve, I don't know if I have enough. I've only been in the reserves for about 10 months now, and I have no complaints so far. So I can't really say there's nothing I would suggest to improve or change, because so far I've been 100% satisfied with it.
Excellent. Good answer.
Can I jump in on that, Otis?
What's that?
Can I jump on?
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah. So as a physician, he's got a lot of flexibility with what he does in the reserve, which I think is a big misconception when it comes to the civilian side. Is it's the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summertime, and it's very different with each unit, right? So I've run into physicians that it is 1 week in a month, 2 weeks in the summertime, which, and correct me if I'm wrong, Colonel Brigg, it may not interfere with your civilian side, but what Colonel Brigg is doing now, he's in the individual mobilized augmentee, where he just goes 12 days a year to work at the hospital up in Tacoma. We also have, go ahead. Major Brigg.
Go ahead, sir.
That's basically I do my 12 days a year at Madigan, and then I work at the Kansas City VA as a substitute for my government service. So I don't do traditional drill, at least in the reserve sense. I work at the Kansas City VA about 2 8-hour shifts a month in the ER. So I'm still able to do my job. It's good experience, and it fulfills my reserve obligation.
Okay. Thank you very much for that answer, sir. Let's jump on to the next. Wait, she has a follow-up to that question, and the question was also, do you happen to have a brother who's a radiologist at Munson Army Health Center?
I do. That is my brother, Michael.
There you go.
Snap.
Colonel Flocky, I believe, hired him when she worked there. And so she recognized the name. But Colonel Flocky, she actually is the reserve command surgeon. So that's why she had asked Dr. Flocky or Colonel Flocky, she had asked that question, wanting to know what life is like in the reserve and if there's anything to improve on or change. So she actually texted me and was very happy that you're 100% satisfied.
Excellent. I see a question. Well. I see a question here on HPSP. Takara, you want to jump on this question here? Let me show it to you. Bam. It says, please share the process for, I'm sure they meant HPSP application. How competitive is it? Is it a regular school fiscal year or similar in ROTC?
Okay, so for HPSP, what you're required to do is basically kind of like what Colonel Brigg was just talking about. So you apply for medical school, and then it's just the same as, coming into the office. You fill out the application for what we have, show us that you have been accepted into medical school. It is very competitive because, who doesn't want 100% of their medical school tuition to be paid for? So we often encourage people to hop on the opportunity as soon as it's available, because the longer it's out, then the less scholarships that are available to you. So the earlier you do it, the better chances that you have for the scholarship. And what was the other question? Is it like regular fiscal year or similar to ROTC? So as far as schooling, we leave you alone while you're in medical school, and you just kind of continue. You just, continue to go. You have to sign, we do check in just to make sure, of course, that you're passing and then you're fulfilling your part of the obligation. But as far as with ROTC, there, like, you don't have to do kind of like an ROTC type thing like that. And then Captain Weaver and Captain Parham, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong in what I said, or tighten me up a little bit.
So something that you mentioned, that really just kind of like, I want to emphasize a little bit more is that, so Captain Parham and we came up with this tagline when we sent out live stream information for an HPSP live stream that we did a couple weeks ago. And we talked about, you can either earn like $120,000. I think it's about $120,000 or $130,000 that you would earn with your bonus and your monthly stipend that you'll earn during the 4 years of medical school, or you can be in debt that or more. And we actually had people that commented and said, how much their medical school costs, and someone had said that their medical school costs $60,000 a year, which would be $240,000 in debt. And obviously there's no way you could work during medical school because of the time commitment. So just kind of looking at the financial aspect, and of course, you have to have other motivations to want to do it, and not just purely financial, but just kind of looking at it like, wow, like it is a lot of money that you could earn while you're in medical school and come out with no debt, and already be setting yourself financially in a great spot as you start your career as a physician. So, you have to have that desire to serve, and, you have to want to be in the Army, but it definitely does help that the Army is going to pay for your medical school, and you're going to get the stipend and a bonus on top of that.
Awesome.
Can I touch on one thing, Captain?
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah. So the one thing that Captain Winston said, you don't actually have to be accepted into medical school at that point in time. You can start your application while you're applying to medical school, and we just put in, when it comes to the board, what medical schools you have applied to. So it gives you some leniency where you can start your application about the same time that you're starting your application to medical school. So you start those two consecutively. You may get accepted into the scholarship program before you get accepted in medical school, and then you're already accepted into the scholarship, know your medical school is paid for, and then get accepted to medical school. So it helps, even if you're between your junior and your senior year. Go ahead and apply. The first board of the year is October. Get accepted, know your medical school is paid for, and then get accepted wherever it is that you want inside of the United States, of course.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Just good information all over. So it looks like we got about 3 more questions, and I guess we'll kind of close off our discussion. And this is a follow-up question on the HPSP. Thank you, Jabet, for the question that you asked. Is HPSP more competitive if my spouse is also an active duty member, United States Marine Corps?
It doesn't matter. We don't take into consideration what your spouse is doing. It's specifically competitive on what you have done on your volunteer or your free time, volunteer, shadowing your GPA, where you decide to apply, whether it's MD or DO, it doesn't matter. But what your spouse has done or is currently doing, it really does not matter.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon. Sir, Colonel Brigg, this question is for you. Dr. Brigg, how difficult was it to match into surgical specialty as a DO? I'm interested in anesthesia and scared of that beyond the MD DO stigma.
So where I did my surgery internship, there was one DO a year ahead of me, and there was another DO in my class. As for how difficult it was, I can't answer because I wasn't on the selecting part. I felt like I was treated fairly regardless of DO versus MD. And the last time I had checked, I was under the impression that like it's almost close to 50% of like DOs and MDs in the military, but I don't actually have that data. That was more of like rumors or just like whispers. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but as for anesthesia, I wouldn't be able to answer it. Like I've never come across in the military any DO versus MD bias, but again, I have very limited experience with it. So
Okay, thank you very much, sir. As you see, I was kind of delayed in posting the banner of information on the bottom there. If y'all want to get in contact with any of these phenomenal recruiters, you can go through Captain Weaver. She is, she's holding it down and will push you in the right direction that you need to be pushed to.
Otis, are you using AOL as well? Is that why it was so delayed?
Oh no, this is high speed internet. This is high speed internet, but I could accidentally cut you off on this program. So.
Accidentally.
I will say you have a really nice camera, though.
Hey, that's what we do over here. That's what we do over here.
You have a great camera.
Thank you, sir. So the next question, right here. It says, do activated reservists ever get tasked to be 62 Bravo instead of working in their designated specialty? I think you answered that earlier. Did you? Or maybe that.
I don't know the answer to that one. That'd probably be better for them to answer.
Okay, recruiters, anyone knows the answer to this?
I got you, Colonel Brigg. So activated reservists, if you go into your specialty, you're going to hold a particular vacancy or position, right? So if you're 62 Alpha, emergency med, or 61 Juliet, general surgeon, whatever the case is, if that is your primary specialty, that's what they're going to go with. Now, I have run into some situations where physicians didn't go through residency while they're on active duty and they come out as 62 Bravos. And that's, or we cannot find them a vacancy for their particular specialty. So we put them into a 62 Bravo position, and that's what they get designated as when it comes to activation. So the short answer to that is no, you do not get activated as 62 Bravo if you're in your specialty.
Wow, Brandon, you even have a theme song in the background with your answer. That's phenomenal.
That wasn't my noise. Holly must have put that on there.
Why does it have to be me?
I don't know. Why couldn't it be you?
Oh my goodness. All right, y'all. I see two more questions on here. Let's go ahead and post it up. And I think it comes from Ms. Cardoso again. She's asking the good questions. She asks, how does the HPSP differ from the, I believe, is that USHU's scholarship? Yes. Does anyone have the answer to that?
Well, from what I can tell, the USHU's is the Army, medical school. So you're on active duty while you're at USHU's, and it's also an additional obligation because you're paid as if you're active duty as well as getting, free medical school versus like the HPSP, which is just, it's, I would say very similar to the ROTC where you do your civilian medical school and then the Army pays for it. Oversimplified, but
awesome. Straight to the point. That's what we need.
And there's actually,
go ahead.
Just to add on to that, before, if they're an enlisted person that is wanting to apply for USU for medical school, there's a bridge program that we talked about a couple weeks ago. And now I can't remember the name of it. Does anyone remember what it was called? But it's like a prep program that
enlisted to medical degree preparatory program, or
there you go.
EMP.
Nailed it.
EMDP2.
Oh my gosh.
These acronyms.
Someone's freshly from someone got it. She's like, well, let me just make sure.
She's like, I
this
take
is ready.
notes.
Boom.
Right, my friend
But yes, so that is an EDMP2. Someone just commented.
Yep.
And that's a great way that you could finish all your prereqs and be prepared to go to medical school if you're not a currently serving officer. So just throwing that out there as well, that option is available and not a lot of people know about it.
Excellent.
I actually learned about that on this live stream while I was hosting it. I had no idea about it until last week when Captain Lynch and I were on here.
Well, knowledge is power. Knowledge is power.
You guys are teaching me stuff.
Excellent. So
Sometimes,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, sometimes as recruiters, we don't find out about the programs that are just for active duty because we don't recruit for them or, put people into them. But it is helpful for us to know about these programs because a lot of times we get active duty service members reaching out to us, and these are things that we can encourage them to apply for because it fits their career path.
Okay.
For sure.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good touch there. Who said for sure? Thank you. So I guess almost in closing of our discussion today, if we could just go around the panel and ask Dr. Brigg, of course, whatever question it is that you'd like to ask him. Who'd like to start that off? Captain Parham.
I mean, I've worked with Colonel Brigg here for a while. So him and I apologize. He said Captain Parham, and I just ran with it. So I've worked with Colonel Brigg for a while. So a lot of the questions that I've had for him and I sat down, like I said, at Starbucks outside of Fort Leonard Wood, and we discussed different things about what goes on at Fort Leonard Wood, how his experience has been, why he wants to join the reserve, why he wants to do that transition, and what his motivation is. I don't really have a lot of questions for Colonel Brigg.
Okay, Captain Lindsay.
So I think my just last question would be just, sir, considering the career that you've had, if you come across like a young doctor or someone that's just really making their career, kind of what would be the closing case, if you will, for you to kind of get them to come into the military to say, this is it for you?
So I'm not exactly sure what the question is. Like, so how would I be like a medical student or like someone who's already a doctor?
Well, we'll go with a medical student.
I would say a medical student, like I would tell them that, with it, the reasons to join the military would be because to get your medical school paid for while still serving. Like, I think their sole motivation for joining shouldn't be financial. I think they should at least have some desire to at least serve or be in the military. Because I've come across a few people whose sole motivation is just I did the scholarship because I wanted free medical school, and I would say they did not enjoy their Army experience. Yeah. Whereas other people, like they wanted the free medical school, but they also want to serve in the military or go all across the world, do that kind of thing. They're generally more satisfied.
Good question, Holly.
Sir, if you could just, think into all of your different experiences, whether it was deployed or stateside, serving as a doctor in the Army, and just share with us another standout patient experience that you had, that's a memory that you can reflect on that will just really paint a picture for our audience.
Okay, let's see. Oh, well, when I was in the first time I had been in Afghanistan, like I was in a place out in the middle of nowhere called Shindan. It was very remote and near the border of Iran. And so I had been there for 24 hours maybe when a bunch of local Afghans basically drove their pickup truck and threw a little kid out of the back of it who had been very severely injured. He was playing soccer with what he thought was a soccer ball. It turned out to be like an unexploded bomb left over from the Soviet era. So it was just me and a general surgeon and a CRNA and a nurse and a couple of medics. So we did some things I never did before. We took care of the kid. I amputated his leg. The general surgeon did a lot more work on his upper body. And then some of the medics and then one of the special forces medics as well did a lot of work on him. It was a very interesting, it's like kind of a welcome to Afghanistan kind of a thing. And it was very interesting, my experience. Definitely something that stands out in my memory.
Yeah, I don't think that's something that you'll probably ever forget.
I did come up with a question that I wish I would have addressed with Colonel Dinks last week about HPSP and moving into the military side of medicine compared to the civilian side of medicine, and working with the insurances and the differences of how you see patients when it comes to the military side to the civilian side.
Sorry, can you clarify that question again? I didn't. Sorry, I just
Yeah, no worries. So the difference of the professional side or the what's the word I'm looking for? Just the business side, I suppose, of working on the military side compared to the civilian side where you're at now.
Okay.
When it comes to insurances, etc.
So yeah, definitely. When I was in the military, like if I told a patient something needed to be done, usually I was able to, if it was warranted or indicated, I was able to get it done. On the civilian side, I deal a lot of times with uninsured patients or patients with limited insurance, and they want to try. They basically said try to make my bill as small as possible because I can't afford it. Because they said if the bill is too high, they might not be able to pay it. They might go into debt or get it collected. So that part is definitely interesting. I don't try to tailor my care based on whether or not someone can pay, but when it's hard to do that when someone says I don't want that because I can't afford it, kind of a thing. It's definitely it's interesting. I don't really know any other way to describe it other than it's different.
So the follow up to that is it a little bit easier of a transition from going to medical school to residency in the Army into the civilians, or sorry, the Army side, not having to worry about that and focus specifically on your specialty, and then moving into the civilian side and then picking up the business aspect of things?
I think it's both pros and cons. Like you're right. Like I said, if I don't have to worry about the business side, I can just focus on the medicine. But as a civilian physician now, like, if you don't bill or, code, you don't do as much, you don't do your job, you don't get paid, and then you won't have a job anymore. So one thing I kind of had to pick up as I was transitioning out of the military was, the proper way of billing and coding, because that was something that was covered. I mean, it was taught to us in the military, but just not as extensive, I think, as in the civilian programs.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, sir. Sir, I guess in closing, my final question would be, if people would like to get in contact with you or follow up with you or potentially reach out to you as a mentor, how could they reach out to you? How could they contact you?
My preferred would be my email. Probably the best way would be, I just have to spell it, would be bohadan2@gmail.com would probably be the best way to contact me.
Bam. That's it. I'm sure people could look back on the recording and get that exact moment when you gave your information out so they could reach out to you. I saw you kind of were a little bit hesitant, but we appreciate you at least taking the time.
I'm just trying to think. I have multiple emails, and I try to keep a personal email like a business email kind of a thing. So I just had to think about which one I was going to use.
Hey, it's all good, sir. It's all good. We appreciate it. You attack sharp, unlike Brandon's internet throughout the entire conversation. So we appreciate it, sir, and we look forward to having you come back and talk with us more in the future.
Sounds good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate your stories.
It never messes up on my Xbox when I play Madden. Okay.
Hey, sir, hang out in the broadcast room. Let me go ahead and close the conversation today. All right. Wait, hold on. We don't need Brandon. We need me. So today's discussion was an awesome one, of course. You could see just the natural conversation between all five of us just really gave good information, gave fluidity to the conversation, and of course, gave motivation, hopefully, to someone out there who may be interested in joining Army Medicine. If you do by chance are interested in becoming part of our wondrous band, contact information down there for Captain Holly Weaver. You could reach out to her and she will square you away and put you in the right contact with whomever you need to speak to. So, as we always say in closing, Army Medicine is Army Strong. Bye now.